Hello, welcome to the latest episode of Harmonious World. My name is Hilary Seabrook, and I've been delighted in the last few weeks that I've bumped into several new listeners, and it's really lovely to meet them in person. Some people are people I know who have started listening, and others are people who've just said that they have started listening. So thank you for being part of this little community. So if you don't know me, my name is Hilary Seabrook, and I was inspired during lockdown by a quotation that I found from Quincy Jones, which went something along the lines of, "Imagine what a harmonious world it would be if everyone shared a little of what they're good at." So here on Harmonious World, I chat with musicians and sometimes those with an interest in music. Find out what makes them tick. What makes them make the world a more harmonious place. Alongside this podcast, you can also find my blog with lots of live reviews and album reviews. So for this episode, I'm joined by Chris Gall. What you're listening to now is Chris Gall's interpretation of Maurice Ravel's Pavane pour un enfant défunt. This is taken from his new album, Impressionists Improvised. I hope you enjoy listening to my conversation with pianist Chris Gall. Hello, how are you?
Morning. I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, very good, thanks, Chris. It's a real pleasure to talk to you.
Same for me. Thanks for inviting me.
No problem. It's great to talk to you about this new album you've got out, Impressionists Improvised. By the time this comes out, it will be released.
Yeah, it will be released in the 28th. So it's 2 more weeks, 1.5 weeks. Yes, it's always kind of exciting. The time before the release and the release. I mean, the work is done. I mean, the work has been done like
Of course.
month ahead, a month ago, and all the preparation. But now when it comes out, it's kind of exciting.
Definitely. And this is a really interesting album because you, as well as 5 original tracks, and then you've got some impressionist music that you have improvised as well. And so explain how that process happened, because these are beautiful pieces of music.
Thank you. Well, originally I wasn't thinking of putting my originals on this album. I was just working on the arrangements and adaptations of the original pieces, like the Ravel, Satie, and Debussy pieces. But then, since my previous records, they all consist of mostly original music, so I thought, I just want to put some of my work in as well. And I was inspired by working on this great pieces of this great composers. So I just felt in between practicing these original pieces, I felt inspired just to find my own little melodies and voicings. So I decided to put them in as well.
Right. Okay, so we'll talk about those again in a moment, but first of all, I want to talk to you about the concept. So the original concept of the album, which was to take these pieces by sort of fairly well-known impressionist composers and arrange them for your own. So they're all with just solo piano, aren't they?
Yes, it's just solo piano. And I started like a few years ago. I'm playing with one band, Quattro Nuevo, and we are playing like many shows in Germany. And like within songs that we play, they gave me a spot to improvise like every night. So I had like, it started out like I improvised for 2 minutes, and then it got longer and longer, like over the weeks. And I started to realize that the colors I'm drawing from, so to speak, are like fairly impressionistic or have an impressionistic touch. So I extended this improvisation that I did on the spot every night, more and more going towards impressionistic music and like the sparkling arpeggios that you relate with this kind of music sometimes. So I used that on stage, and it did it for such a long time that I felt like, okay, this might be something that fits to me, first of all, and it might be something that inspires me. I mean, sometimes you have great ideas and you want to do this and that, but after all, you have to be sitting at your instrument and working for weeks, and you have to be really inspired to keep on doing this.
Yeah, and one of the things that I think is interesting is people who don't necessarily improvise themselves or don't necessarily kind of understand it think that you just sit at your instrument or stand with your instrument and this all comes from nowhere. But of course, it doesn't. It takes a
Um,
huge amount of preparation and learning to be
I
able
mean,
to improvise.
true. I mean, improvisation is a mystery somehow. I mean, it's exactly as you say. It's not just sitting down and improvising. It's knowing the tools, knowing all the keys of the piano and all the strings of the guitar and all the fingerings. I mean, you have to know everything by heart, and and then if like in the back of your mind you have some idea growing on stage or in the studio or at home, I mean, your underconsciousness and your fingers, do they have to know what to do without telling them. So this means a lot of practice and a lot of experience as well. But sometimes, um, like underconsciousness, is that the right word? I'm not sure.
Subconscious.
Some consciousness, right? I mean, that's the most important part in improvisation, I guess. But it means it relies on what you've practiced and worked on weeks, days, years before.
Yeah, absolutely. And I find that really fascinating because I think if you haven't improvised, you don't understand how important it is that you know what you're doing, in terms of using your instrument.
Right, right. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes uh, um, there are moments where you're on stage and you really don't know what's going to happen 2 bars after. And this is really exciting, but nevertheless, I mean, it's your subconsciousness will tell you what to do if you're in that lucky state of mind that you're like just out there somewhere. But
Yeah.
sometimes improvisation is not completely undetermined, like in my piece Rêverie by Debussy, where I improvise over like a ostinato loop pattern in my left hand. It's in 7/8. It's like an odd meter loop, but improvising over that loop means not that I make up something completely new, but it means I have practiced the scales for this rhythm, for this ostinato, and I practiced my right hand to improvise going this way or that way. The the thing that is improvised in that very moment is the decision of intensity, of direction, of overall feeling. So it's not that I come up with new notes or tones every time. It's impossible. I mean, music history is so old, and so, I mean, so many notes have been played on this planet. I mean, you can't come up with new music every day, right?
Right. No, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, there are well, I mean, I often say there are only 12 notes and it's just that the millions of permutations, but it's also, as you say, it's about the rhythmic emphasis you put on things, the stress, the dynamics, there's all of
Right.
those elements all come together, don't they?
Yeah, right.
And
It,
who knows where they come from? As you say, it is a mystery because who knows
yeah.
where that comes from? But that's
Well,
the
I
joy.
think in the best case they come from your personality, right? I mean, and your personality is um is what you have listened in your early years. It might be what you've listened on the night before, what you might have played on a session the week before. You don't know, but that's after all, that's you, right? That's your musical personality or identity.
Yeah. Yeah. Fascinating. Um, so at this point, I would like to play an extract from The Impressionist number 3.
Okay.
That's a really lovely piece, and it's got some elements of. I mean, you've talked in the information around this album about Brad Meldau,
Right.
and because he's a phenomenal player, isn't he?
Oh yes, yeah. I mean, people often say, "Oh, he's one of the great players, the greatest players of all." But in that case, I would say it's true.
Yes.
I mean, he's so inspiring. And when I went to college, I studied in Boston, Berklee College of Music. And
Ah.
by that time, he was maybe in his mid-20s, and everybody started to talk about him, like faculty, all the students. And when he came to town to play in Boston, he was actually from that area. I think he grew up from that area. So when he came to play in town, everybody was running there, even like my teachers, all my student friends. It was really exciting because he came up with something completely new. I mean, we'd never heard to play anyone like him rhythmically, harmonically. He made something up. I mean, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. And I one of the nice things I think about this album is for a start the sort of links between classical and jazz music. You know, we're all creators coming from what we've heard before, as you were saying, whether it's what you heard when you were sort of first learning the piano and playing Bach studies, or whether it's sort of what you were listening to yesterday or on the way
Right,
to
right.
into the studio or whatever it is. And I love it when there are connections between musicians who are working now today.
Yeah, and I think that it happened. I mean, it's like your inspiration is also coming from who you've played with before, and it's not just the great guys that you've played. And I mean, every here and then we get to play with musicians that are really inspiring, and it's that are sort of a highlight for you to play with. But your inspiration also draws from who you play with regularly, or who you play with who is not like in that good shape, maybe.
Yeah.
Because that's also it's also an influence. I mean, imagine you play with, let's say, a bass player who's dragging, right? I mean, this puts you in a position where you do something about it as a pianist. So you're aware of, okay, the time is this and that, and what should I do to make it work? What can I do to make it work? And this is also something that makes something with you. I mean, it makes you aware of things that you would not be aware if the bass player would just be right on time. I mean,
Right.
it's all big influences for every musician, who you play with, who they are, no matter what stage they are, no matter how good they are.
Yeah, definitely. So, can you, for the sake of my listeners, explain your background, where you've come from?
Yeah, well, as a young boy, I started to play piano. Like maybe I started when I was 5 or 6 years old, and I started with classical piano. And I mean, I was a young boy. I didn't care anyways, right? I mean, we had a piano at home, and my mom would play every here and then. And as a young boy, you just do it, you know. Of course, I also played soccer, and I loved that most. But
Yeah.
play piano and without without being too emotional about it. I just did it, and I kept on doing it for many years. And I wanted to quit the piano at one point. As I said, I prefer to play soccer, as everybody. But when I was 15, maybe in high school, we suddenly had a new teacher, and we started a high school jazz band. So I started to play, yeah, things like Take Five, Dave Brubeck, right? And like these kind of blockbuster jazz hits, Take Five, Pink Panther theme, um, like stuff like that. And this was my first, yeah, my first experience with jazz, were these like super easy listening pieces, and jamming over a blues. And I felt, after having played classical piano for so long, and it's such an intense level, I played competitions and everything. I was always by myself when I played classical. I was always a soloist. And then playing in a jazz band, where I had this sensation of interacting the very first time in my life, I was I was just super fascinated, and I loved it. Maybe because of, you're a band, you're not alone, and there's interaction. And yeah, and then actually from one day to the next, I quit classical music and, and just played jazz from that day on.
Right, but clearly your classical influences have stayed with you, because this album is very much almost taking those, the Ravel, Debussy, Satie, and playing with it in your own personal style, which is lovely.
Well, thank you. Well, I guess, yeah, the classical background, as I said, I mean, your musical personality, it's like draws from your early days as well. And
Yeah.
as I've played classical music for so long, I mean, even though I haven't played it for 20 years now, before almost 20 years, it's still there somehow. At least the feeling. I wouldn't dare to compete with a classical pianist playing Clair de Lune in the original style. I would never do that. But I think it's interesting to do it in my way. I don't try to do anything better than others do, or to make the original version better than it actually is, because they're the best, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they're so amazing compositions, and there's like hundreds of amazing recordings of these tunes. So I don't want to do anything better. I just want to do it a little different, and for the sake of it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just your perspective, isn't it? It's your
Right. It's my perspective, and I guess as a listener, it's your choice to share it, right? I mean, when you put on when you press play for a new album, it's like you share the perspective with the musician that you're listening to. And
Yeah.
like releasing a new album, as I do, it's just an invitation for any listener just to, share this experience with me for that very moment he's listening to.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So what have you got coming up in terms of performances, or have you got any ideas for another album?
For another album, not yet. It's kind of
Too early.
almost too early at this point. Um, well, now I have some release gigs coming up and some small gigs and one like really huge concert. It's in my hometown, Munich, and there's a huge theater, and I try to fill it with people. Like, hopefully it works. It's like really huge, so it will be a lot of work. It will be in June 2nd. And yeah, until then, I think my daily routine will be practicing for this show. And after that, I don't know. I mean, I have a project, a new trio. It's based on prepared piano where I
Ah,
do a lot of kind of minimal music influenced music with a lot of prepared piano elements. It's with drum set, bass clarinet, and piano. So the bass clarinet is like the bass player
oh, right.
only. So he never plays melodies. He only plays like bass, like electric bass.
Wow.
And I play grooves on a prepared piano and a drum set. So we had a release early this year in January on Compost Records. It's called Prepared. That's the name of our group. And the album is called Module, like module.
Oh, yeah.
And so we do a second album in autumn, I guess.
Right.
So right after my solo shows that I will have now, I start to work on this new stuff, the
Fantastic.
trio.
That's great. It's lovely to hear, musicians doing different things.
That's like I love to do different things. I mean, I think it's so important. Like for let's say my trio album, it's so important that I work on a solo repertoire, and it's so important. If I do a trio, it's also so important to have played with vocalists or to have played with a big band, whatever. It's like every setup has its own challenges and its own weaknesses and strength, and that's everything you can, or there's something to learn from everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Fantastic. It's such a pleasure to talk to you, Chris. Thank you so much for your
Well,
time.
thanks for inviting me.
I hope you enjoyed listening to that conversation with pianist Chris Gall. Thank you for joining me once more for Harmonious World. It would be great if you could share this podcast with friends. Also, look at my blog for album and live reviews. And there's a Buy Me a Coffee link, so you can buy me a cup of tea. Or you can buy one of my cute little key rings or a pen. There will be more merchandise to come in due course. But thank you for joining me once again for Harmonious World, and I hope you have a great week. Thank you for listening to the latest episode of Harmonious World. My name is Hilary Seabrook, and it's a great delight to bring this series of discussions with musicians and composers and writers and all sorts of people to you. Obviously, there's no point in having a podcast if people aren't listening, and I'm very grateful to my listeners for doing so. Thanks also to Joe English for composing and performing this new theme tune. So wherever you get your podcast, you can leave a review. You can share this with your friends and family, either as a link or on social media and that sort of thing. I'd be really grateful for that. Don't forget that you can subscribe now. There's a link wherever you get your podcasts. So have a great week, and please remember why I started this, which is just to try and make the world a little more harmonious. Thanks for listening to Harmonious World.